What's up, YouTube? So, tell a story today. Just want to give a little bit of background and tell the story of when my daughter Alea was born. So, it's like 2015. My female at the time, my ex now, was pregnant, obviously. So, she'd been getting pains. She was about, I don't know, she was at 26 weeks. My daughter was born at 26 weeks gestation. So, female starts getting these pain in her stomach. She was at work. She said, "Oh, I think it's gas pains." Called the nurse or whatever, the doctor, and they told her to come in. Better be safe, just check it out, yada yada. So, at the time I was doing some work on my truck. Whatever, it's not really important, but so she gets to the hospital. I get this phone call, and she tells me, "I came in because I thought it was gas. Now they're telling me you're giving birth today. There's some complications, and you're not leaving the hospital until that baby's out of you." So, long story short, I end up showing up to the hospital. Get there, and I was late because I had gotten this call out of nowhere, so I was unprepared. I get all my shit together, get to the hospital, and they tell me, "Oh, thank God, we were waiting for you. There's complications. We're gonna have to do an emergency C-section." Again, I said 26 weeks. So I agree. We sign all the paperwork, yada yada. Emergency C-section. Well, the baby comes out. We are not allowed to see the baby at first. They're doing, they're handling all that stuff, whatever. So, I guess a couple days goes by. I don't really remember how much time exactly goes by, but she ends up in the incubator. So, this little girl ended up being in the incubator for 4 months. One of the toughest 4 months of my life. It was crazy. Most of the parents, while I was in there, most of the families left after, somewhere in between 2 to 4 weeks, and they're out of there. We were in there for the longest in that one. We were the people who had been there the longest at that time. So the nurses, they're coming out, they're taking care of her, this and that, and they're going through. And as time goes on, I start to see that some of this stuff is kind of messed up. It's not the most ideal thing. One of the things that I didn't like was that, she's in the incubator, so it's this clear box that she sits in, and it's covered. It's totally enclosed. And they have her hooked up to the heart monitors, all the little stickies attached to her, yada yada, hooked up to the machines, the monitors are all beeping. And they told me that they just come back to check on her every 3 hours. And so when I was there, I would sit there after work. I worked about 5 minutes up the road, and after work I would just go there. Get off of work at 4 o'clock, go there. Sometimes I stay there all night, sometimes I sleep there, sometimes I just stay for a couple hours and go home. While I was there, I noticed when they come to check on her, they have this blanket covering the box so that she could sleep, so the light's not too bright for her. When they come to check on her, they just come and lift this blanket up, look at her, put the blanket back down, and then walk away as long as the monitors are good. And a lot of the time, my daughter would be screaming for hours and hours and hours. And these people would just come, lift up the blanket, look at her while she's screaming, and then put the blanket back down and walk away. So that first, it kind of struck me as maybe a little cold, maybe a little cold. But I don't know, that was difficult for me. So after Isla was born, after she had the C-section, her mother went into, I guess, what females call postpartum depression. She went into a postpartum depression, and she laid in the bed for 3.5 months. She didn't get out of that bed 3.5 months. She would just drink, go back to bed, get up, drink, go back to bed. Very rarely would she actually come to the hospital, spend some time up there. And I was up there every day. Back in the day, I had my youngest son. I had 2 other kids in Florida, and my youngest son, coincidentally, was in the NICU for 4 months also, and he ended up dying after 4 months. He had congenital heart disease. So during that time with my youngest son, I was a major piece of shit. I think I was 20 years old at the time. I was in Florida. I didn't have any family in the state. I was kind of there by myself. I didn't have any support system. I didn't know what I was doing. So I had a friend, the older male that was in my life at the time, that I was looking up to and hanging out and kind of just, tagging along, trying to learn from him, I guess, subconsciously trying to learn from him. He told me basically in so many words, I know this is a tough time. I'm sorry. Why don't I help you take the edge off? Why don't you try some of these oxys and we'll put it in a needle. We'll just experiment. Just take the edge off. And me being in a majorly vulnerable state, I had nobody there for me. I just needed something, anything, someone to throw me a bone. So I took it. Bad decision, terrible, but I did it. So during that time, I fell off really bad. I neglected. I was scared, and I ran away. I was scared and I ran away. So this time when Ilea went into the NICU, I was not going to have any regrets this time. I was going to go as hard as I possibly could. I was not going to lose again. I was not going to do that again. First time it took me it took me a long time to come out of the fun, let go of the guilt from running away. So this time I was going to try my absolute best. So this time I was there. I was there throughout the whole thing. I was the first one to hold my daughter. Again, her mom was gone for 3 years. She wasn't even up there. So I was the one who held my daughter first. I was the one who changed her diaper first. She had to learn how to drink from a bottle. So what I taught her how to breathe while she was drinking from a bottle. So I would hold the bottle up, and then she would pull on it 3 times. And then I would tip it back down, and before she couldn't get any milk, she would be forced to take a breath. She took the breath, and I would tilt it back up and let her take 3 more pulls and then tilt it down. She'd take a breath, and that's how she learned how to breathe while she was drinking from a bottle. The first skin-to-skin contact, they say that it's really important. It does a lot for the child, and honestly for the mother, to have that skin-on-skin contact with the child, for just up against the I don't know, the bosom, whatever. But I was the first one to do the skin-to-skin contact. And so when we were going through it, there was a lot of complications. My daughter she had perforated bowels. So they had to fix her bowels. She had a colostomy bag, is basically what I'm saying. A little bit of her intestines was hanging out of her stomach. She had the colostomy bag. She had a couple different surgeries. They had a lot of trouble finding different veins, for different IVs. There was one time that they were trying to find a vein, and they took her back. They took my daughter back in a different room to go try to find the vein. I think they were back there for almost an hour, and they brought her back, and they were like, we couldn't find a vein, couldn't find one, we couldn't get it in. We're gonna take 10 minutes, give her a break, and then we're gonna take her back and try again. Now, when they brought this girl in, she looked like she had the chicken pox. She had so many red marks on her. They had stuck her with that needle so many times. She looked like she had the chicken pox. They tried to stick her in her face, in the top of her head, in her neck, in her hands, all over her body. They stuck her with that freaking needle so many darn times, and I snapped. I wouldn't let them take her back and try anymore. Then we went to a different hospital, and that hospital got it on the first try. They got the vein on the first try. So, I think is it a Chinese torture technique that they put needles under your fingernails? I don't know, but you can only imagine what it's like trying to get a shot in your face. Anyways, there was a time while she was in there. So there was one time when this was the first time that I had to fight for her life. So there was one time when for some reason her kidneys, she was having kidney failure. So I guess what they do to a bigger person, a bigger human, when they're having kidney failure, is they put you on dialysis. I don't really know what dialysis is. So because Ilea was so small at the time, they couldn't put her on a dialysis machine. They were thinking about attempting to perform dialysis manually. So they call in a specialist from out of town. The kidney specialist comes in. I'm in the room with Ilea, with her mother. This was one of the times that her mother was there. So they call us into this room. In this room, we have a doctor. We have about 4 nurses, and then we have the kidney specialist. We have me, my daughter's mother, and then my mother was on speakerphone. She lived in Texas at the time. So they bring us into this room, they sit us down, and they have this conversation with us. They say, listen, your daughter, when she gets older, the best case scenario for her is that she lives and she is going to be a vegetable. She will never be anything. They told us that. They told us, we recommend that you take her off of life support and let it go. Take her off of life support and go try again. She's going to be a vegetable for the rest of her life. Try again. Let her go and try again. The kidney specialist said that, basically in so many words, said that she is hesitant to even do it. She's hesitant to even perform the procedure because there's such a high chance that my daughter's going to be a vegetable. She didn't even want to put the effort in. because the end outcome is she didn't want to take the chance of having a failure on her portfolio, on her records. She didn't want to take the chance of having a failure on her record because they thought my daughter would be a vegetable forever. So she was hesitant to perform the procedure. At this time, my mother on speakerphone is telling me and my ex, just take her off the life support and try again. This isn't worth it. This isn't what you want. Try again. Let her go. The nurses, they're crying. They're crying right now. Or at the time, they're crying, telling us, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this happened. I know it's tough. We gotta just let it go. My ex, she's sitting next to me. She says, she didn't say anything. She's just bawling, out of control, crying, unbelievable crying. She would have said anything, anyone in the emotional state that she was in, she could have been talked into anything. And I told them, I really don't care what the end outcome is. I'm gonna take care of it no matter what. I'm gonna handle it no matter what the outcome is. Do your damn job. Get it done. Get it done. My mother started crying. She told me to think about it. Think about it. She told me, I can't even do this. She told me, I can't do this. You should not do this. You should let it go. And I didn't let it go. I didn't let it go. So later on, after they told us that she was going to be a vegetable, then she started moving around, opening her eyes, making sound. The next thing that they told us was that she is going to be eating through a tube in her stomach for the rest of her life. She'll never be able to eat food orally. Then the bottle came. Then we taught her how to drink from a bottle. They were wrong again. So after 4 months of sitting there through this hell with all of these nurses, now mind you, the entire time, a lot of the nurses, because we had this condition, a lot of these nurses who just, a lot of the nurses that were in the NICU didn't even have kids. They really didn't. They were kind of, they had a lot of arrogance about them, and treated me and treated my ex like we were less than, like we didn't know anything, like we were stupid. They would give that attitude when we had questions about things. It was tough. It was tough for 4 months. It was tough. So finally, we had the 24-hour stay over where we stay there, care for her fully off the machines, do everything while they watch you for 24 hours before you're allowed to take them home. And it ended up, it came to an end. It came to an end. We brought her home. I was so excited. Because my baby, my pride and joy, freaking, she fought through the entire thing. My little girl turned out to be a soldier. She turned out to be a real life survivor. She kicked ass. Couldn't break her. You couldn't tear her down. You couldn't keep her down. She did it, and that was what gave me the most pride. That was what made me the most proud out of anything, is that she She had to look death in the face. She had a standoff with death several times. Several times. She had the standoff with death. She was tortured, stuck with needles. She was left to scream and scream and scream for hours and days and weeks by herself. Nobody came for her. Nobody came for her. And in the end, she killed it. In the end, she was none of the things that the doctors told us that she was going to be. Tried to scare us. Told us to kill her because she's never going to be any of this. And she killed it. And she ended up coming home. She ended up coming home, and we started. We started from there. And yeah. So that's the story of the NICU. The second time, the NICU, the second time with Alea. Yeah, that's the story.